Hi, and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to be sharing my unbiased and honest review of Corsair's Ironclaw RGB Wireless mouse. A couple weeks ago, the mouse that I had been using ended up going kaput on me, so I needed to get a new mouse. Enter the Corsair Ironclaw RGB Wireless mouse. Needless to say, I did pay for this mouse with my own money for my own personal use. So this video is not sponsored by Corsair in any way, and all of the opinions in this video are my own for the purposes of this review. I have been using this mouse for a couple weeks now, and I gotta say, this mouse has far exceeded my expectations for it. So before I get into the review, I'll just give a quick rundown of the things that are in the box. So out of the box, you get the standard manual, warranty information, and safety instructions that are included with pretty much every product, as well as an adapter. This is a micro USB to USB-A adapter. However, both ends are female, so you will need both cords in order to really use the adapter. You also get the cable that's included with the mouse, as well as this USB dongle. That is going to be your slipstream connection to your computer. And of course, we can't forget the star of the show, the Ironclaw RGB Wireless mouse itself. Starting with the aesthetics of the mouse, I really enjoy looking at this mouse when it's just chilling on my desk when I'm not using it. It really has a premium look and feel to it without going too crazy on the RGB. The combination of the black body and the gray gunmetal accents on the front really give it a nice look that will go good with any setup. The front of this mouse also has a really cool design look that almost gives fighter jet vibes with the way that they designed it. The hump of this mouse gives a really good aesthetic, but it also provides great ergonomics as well. This is by far the most comfortable mouse I have used in my setup, and I have really large hands, and it just fits them so beautifully. I can't believe how well it fits my hands. I can use this mouse for hours without any soreness or hand cramping, and it far exceeds my expectations as far as comfort goes with this mouse. The smooth plastic on the back feels great on the hands and fingers, while the diamond-shaped rubber on the bottom gives a great feel on the fingers, and it really gives the whole mouse itself a nice premium look to it. This mouse does have 4 different lighting zones, with 3 of them being fully customizable and the 4th being semi-customizable. As I said before, I love that Corsair didn't go too crazy with the RGB lighting on this mouse. It's just enough to give it a really good look without being overbearing. The logo on the back of the mouse, the lights in the front of the mouse, and the lights underneath the wheel are all fully customizable using Icue software, while the indicator lights on the left side of the mouse are semi-customizable, as you can change the color, but you can't really add coloring effects to them. These lights will change color when you're changing the profile on your mouse, so you will be able to set a color to each profile so you know what profile the mouse is currently running on. When it comes to lighting, it is super subjective. Everyone will have their own opinions and preferences when it comes to this. So even though I love that they didn't put an overbearing amount of RGB lighting on this mouse, others might find it a little too subtle for their own tastes, especially for those RGB lovers out there. Alright, moving on to connectivity of the mouse. There are 3 different ways to connect this mouse to your PC. Well, kinda. Let me explain. The first method you could do, obviously, is connecting your mouse via the USB cable that is included with the mouse. This wired connection, like any other wired mouse, will provide a really solid connection with no dropouts, and you don't have to worry about any lag or anything like that when you're running it in wired mode. When I've used it in wired mode, it has performed flawlessly, and there's not a negative I can say about the mouse. The only difference with this being a wired connection and other wired mouses is at the end of the day, you can just unplug the cable and use this as a wired mouse. The cable that comes with the mouse is a nice looking black braided cable that is 5 feet 11 inches long This cable has a nice premium feel to it, and it feels anything but cheap. Well, I did purchase my own cable to go with this mouse as I wanted a little bit longer cable. The cable I ended up picking out actually looks exactly the same as the cable that came in the box, with the exception of it being a little bit longer and there's no Corsair logo on the end of the cable. So I will give it to Corsair here. The cable is 5 feet 11 inches long, almost 6 feet. So for most setups, it's going to be more than enough cable to be able to run it from wherever you need it to your mouse pad. It's black braided, has a premium feel to it. It's just a really nice touch to put with this premium looking mouse. But I'm guessing if you're looking at buying a wireless mouse, you probably aren't wanting to sit here and listen to me talk about the wired connection. So let's get into the wireless parts. This brings me to the second method, which is connecting through the USB dongle that is included with the mouse, called Slipstream. It's a 2.4 gigahertz connection that provides a super solid connection with almost no latency whatsoever. In the couple weeks that I've been using this mouse, this is the method that I've been using the most, and I virtually cannot tell any difference between when I have it wired or when I'm using this method to run the mouse. It makes it super great connection, with the only thing you really have to worry about is charging your mouse at night. Corsair does advertise up to 24 hours of use with the Slipstream connection. I haven't been able to really test that out, as I've gone to bed, charged the mouse at night, and I've never had it run out of battery when I'm using it during the day. This method of connecting the mouse has taken away all my doubts of horror stories that I've heard of people using wireless mouses, as like I said, I can't notice any difference between when I have it plugged in and when I'm using the Slipstream connection. It's just a really solid connection that I highly recommend anybody use if they purchase this mouse. And finally, we get to the third method of connecting, which is the reason I said kinda earlier on in the video. This will be the Bluetooth connection, which most people are most familiar with. Even though most people are more familiar with this connection, I really don't find it very useful, as it does provide a little bit of latency when you are using the mouse. So there is a little bit of lag. I haven't really had the Bluetooth connection drop when I've been using it, but the lag is noticeable. For most tasks, this won't be a real big issue, just more of a slight annoyance. But when it comes to gaming, you definitely are going to want to use a different connection method, as it can really impact how fast you can do things on games. Now, the one advantage the Bluetooth does have over the Slipstream wireless is Corsair does advertise up to 50 hours of usage on one charge for the Bluetooth. However, the con of the latency really doesn't make it a better option for Slipstream. If you're able to pick between the two, I would definitely recommend using Slipstream over the Bluetooth wireless in every situation. So who is the Bluetooth feature for? Really, the only situation where I can see this coming in handy is if you're using a laptop or a device that you don't have any open USB ports, then Bluetooth can provide a connection without having to plug anything into the USB device. If you end up using this mouse like I do, I end up taking up 2 USB ports on my computer, one with the cord that I can plug in whenever I want to charge it, and the other for the Slipstream dongle. So if you don't have the extra ports, that is the one situation where I might see using Bluetooth. But if at all possible, I would definitely recommend staying away from it if you get the chance. If any of the viewers has any other comments on the Bluetooth or how it might be useful, feel free to drop them in the comments below, as I would love to see if there is possibly something I'm missing here. Now, when you are ready to use the mouse, there is a little button on the bottom of the mouse where you can select which option you want to use, whether you want to use Bluetooth or the 2.4 gigahertz, which is your Slipstream. And then the other option is to turn the mouse off. The design of this button is nice from the fact that it is flush with the mouse, so you don't have to worry about it snagging on your mouse pad or any surfaces. It doesn't get in the way. The only downside is because it is so flush, it's actually kind of hard to get in there to change the settings of it. For most people, this won't be an issue, because once you set it to the setting that you like, usually you won't have to go back in and change it unless your whole setup changes. So for me, once I set it to 2.4 gigahertz, I pretty much flip the mouse back over, and I've been using it ever since without even touching the button. If you plug the cord in, you don't have to change any of the settings on the bottom. It's only if you're switching from 2.4 gigahertz to Bluetooth, or you want to turn your mouse off if you're not near your charging cord. Now, exploring some more of the mouse features, the next thing I'm really going to get into is the DPI on the mouse. This has a huge range, as you can adjust all the way from 100 to 18,000 DPI. So for those of you who don't know what DPI stands for, it stands for dots per inch. So in essence, it's the amount of distance your cursor will travel on your monitor compared to how much you move the mouse on your mouse pad. So the lower you set your DPI, the less distance your cursor will travel when you move your mouse, compared to if you set your DPI really high, your cursor will travel really fast across the screen when you're moving your mouse. So it's just finding the balance in between one extreme and the other to what makes it more comfortable for you. Normally for most computing tasks, I run my mouse at about 2000 DPI, as it's sort of the sweet spot for me. It moves the cursor pretty fast without being blazing fast. But if you're somebody that plays games, you may find that some games you want a slower DPI while others you want a faster DPI depending on the game that you're playing. This also goes for workstation tasks too, as you may find yourself trying to draw images with a mouse or something where you want a lower DPI compared to if you're doing normal workstation flows like video editing and stuff like that. You may want a faster DPI that is just overall more comfortable for you to use. 100 to 18,000 is kind of going from one extreme to the other. As 100 is super turtle slow, I would almost never use it unless I'm playing a game and I'm in sniper mode, as well as 18,000 being super blazing fast, and I can't even hardly keep up with the cursor. So like I said, you have a wide range there where you can set the DPI wherever it's the most comfortable for you. This mouse does come with a sniper mode. From the start, it's not programmed to a button, but you can go into the Icue software and program the sniper mode to a button, so anytime you press it, it'll default to 400 DPI. That is another setting you can change to customize it to whatever you want in the Icue software, along with all the other DPI settings. Speaking of Icue software, you can also go into the Icue for this mouse and reprogram any of the 10 programmable buttons on this mouse to anything you want. There are videos online of how to do this if you want a deeper dive. I'll go into the Icue software a little bit later in the video just to give you a quick overview of the things you can do. But for trying to explain everything, it would make this video way too long, and there's actually people that are much better at explaining the Icue software than I am. Now, another feature they have in the Icue software is the feature to be able to calibrate your mouse to whatever surface you're using. The last thing I want to talk about is the buttons on this mouse. The Ironclaw features arm-on switches, which are supposed to last up to 50 million clicks, which is more time than I'm ever going to have to be able to see if it works. This seems pretty durable to me. However, it will take me some time to be able to figure out if it actually lasts 50 million clicks or not. So stay tuned. For with that being said, these buttons feel spectacular when I'm using the mouse. The main buttons on the left and right that you use for everyday tasks have a nice, satisfying click to them, while all the buttons on the side of the mouse are a lot more silent, but also have a durable feel to them when you press them. All the buttons on this mouse have a nice premium feel to them that I really appreciate when I'm using the mouse. It makes the mouse really enjoyable to use, and dare I say, I really enjoy pressing this mouse's buttons. Alright, so with all these great praises I've given the mouse, I'm sure you're asking yourself at this point, what could possibly be wrong with this mouse? Well, fear not, because I have found some quirks that are a little bit less than flattering when it comes to this mouse. The most obvious to some people watching this video is the Icue software itself. The software makes Corsair's products really customizable. I actually really enjoy using the software. However, a lot of people kind of go on the other end of the spectrum and really hate using the Icue software. For me personally, I think it's super easy to use. I haven't had any crashing issues like some people have had. However, from what I understand, the Icue software used to have a lot of bugs, but the newest versions of the software are pretty much bug-free and make it a really good user experience. Now, the biggest downside to this software is it is a sizable chunk of software, so it takes up room on your hard drives if you're running low on space, and it also can put a little bit of a load on your CPU because it's constantly running in the background of your programs. However, if you already have Corsair products, already have the software downloaded, this can be a positive, as you will not need to download any new software to be able to fully customize this mouse. If you go and look online, you'll find endless people with various opinions of the Icue software and the Corsair ecosystem. Personally, I have found no issues with it whatsoever. I like both the software and what they're doing with the ecosystem in the last year or two. I think that they've really improved the quality of their products, and everything seems to work really well together. That makes it super simple to use and fully customized. So one other little quirk that I did find with this mouse is me not being a very patient person. When I start up my computer, maybe it's just because it's an old computer, but once Windows is fully loaded, it takes about 30 seconds for all the profiles and the customizations that I've set to the mouse to fully take effect. So for about the first 30 seconds, the cursor will move a little bit slower until my profile loads basically in the mouse, and then everything works as normal for as long as I have my computer running. The last little quirk I found with the mouse is the USB cable itself that came with the mouse. Yes, it does have a nice premium look and feel to the cable. However, I was a little bit disappointed that they use micro USB instead of USB-C, being the year 2025. I would have hoped that they would have come out with a revision, as USB-C is a lot better connection, and I've had a lot less problems with USB-C ports getting loose and having a bad connection than I have with micro USB. The other thing with micro USB as opposed to USB-C is you do have to make sure that you're plugging the cable in, as it only goes in one way. So you do have to pay attention and make sure that you're not trying to jam the cable in the wrong way. The other inconvenient thing about this cord is it is only 180 centimeters long, or 5 feet 11 inches. However, for most people, this isn't going to be too big of an issue, as it'll accommodate most setups. For me, just the way I reroute my cables and do my cable management, I did have to pick up a longer cable just so I had about 6 inches more so to be able to fully connect my mouse the way I wanted to and have a little bit of slack in the cable. I can't really fault Corsair too much for this, as like I said, for most people, this isn't going to be an issue. It's just the way I happen to manage my cables, it was for me. But if you are somebody that might need a longer cable, I will leave a link in the description to the cable that I got for this mouse, as it looks completely identical to the cable that came with it. Okay, so now we're in the Icue software. The first thing that you'll need to do when you come into the software is, all you'll have here is just a plus symbol because you won't have any profiles created. So you'll create a new profile. Here you can change the name of your profile really quickly. So I'll just write a quick test. Here I'll give you different colors you can choose as your icon for your new profile. So we can click blue. That way I can distinguish that profile from the others. And that's it, it's loaded. So from here you can go into the mouse. And over here you'll see different menu options. First thing you come to is the device memory mode. So what this essentially does is you can create different profiles that you can use separate from the main profiles. If you switch profiles over here, it'll change the profile on all your devices that is connected through Icue. Where if you have device memory mode on, you can create profiles specifically for your particular mouse, and it won't affect your keyboard or anything else that you may have connected. So each of these profiles, you can go in and change the DPI settings, the key assignments, and the lighting effects. The only difference here is with the lighting effects, you're not going to have near as many options as far as color effects. You'll still have all your static colors that you can choose from, but the actual effects of the colors are pretty limited when you're going on memory mode. I'll discard those changes. Now the first thing I'll go over here is surface calibration. Here it's pretty simple to set up. When you first get your mouse, you'll want to calibrate it to whatever mouse pad you're using, but then you won't need to use it again. It's really simple. You just drag this little icon as fast as you need to in order to keep the arrow in the green. Once the bar completely fills up, then your mouse will be calibrated. Again, super easy process. It'll be self-explanatory once you get your mouse. There you can see calibration process is complete, and that's it. The only caveat I have to the surface calibration is if you turn on device memory mode, the option for it goes away. You can see it disappears. If you unplug your mouse from your USB cord, it'll still be there. However, once you go into it, it'll tell you that you need to plug in your mouse in order to calibrate it. So it does need to be both wired and have device memory mode turned off for you to use surface calibration. Next, we go up here to DPI. In here, you have 3 different stages you can customize for each profile. So you can change the DPI of your mouse either by adjusting the slider from 100 all the way to 18,000, like I mentioned earlier. Now that it's on 100, it goes super slow. Or you can type in manually what DPI you want. Set it. And then these buttons right here on your mouse, you can actually change what stage you're in on your current profile just by clicking the buttons. So you can see that by clicking the buttons, I can change my DPI to any of the 3 presets. The sniper mode, it's not currently set to a button, but we'll set it to a button as we get into key assignments. Here you can change what color these indicator lights are. These are for your DPI. This will let you know what stage you're in. So if you notice, as I change stages of my DPI, the lights over here will change depending on what stage I'm in. So if I wanted to change it to like a purple color, I could do that. You just can't choose any colors that change color, like any lighting effects. They do all have to be static colors. Change it back to blue because I like blue. Same with sniper mode. When it's in sniper mode, the indicator lights will change to a yellow. This also you can customize to whatever you want. And when the mouse switches to your profile, which you can change profiles by these buttons here at the top, it'll flash whatever color your profile is associated with. So this profile has red. I can change this to any color. So when I switch to this profile, it'll briefly flash that color before it loads the profile. Super simple settings. Took me all of about 10 minutes to figure out all this software. You get into key assignments. I'll just go over what the keys are really quickly. Your right and your left click are standard on any keyboard. This same goes for the wheel. Move it to scroll up and down. You can click it to scroll a different way. These are your profile up and down buttons like I went over before. This is to change what DPI stage you're in. and this is your forward and your back buttons on your mouse. You can change these to whatever you want. As I said before, Sniper doesn't come preset, so we can take this option button right here, as it's not assigned to anything on the PC. Go to add assignment, do a mouse feature, add the key, and these are the options that you have to choose from for mouse assignments. We're going to select Sniper, and that's all there is to it. Again, super simple. Now if I click on the option button, you'll see how fast my cursor is moving. Hit Sniper mode and it slows it down to 400 DPI, just as it's set in the DPI settings. Getting into lighting effects, this is another one that's super simple. So when you create a new profile, it's not going to give you any of the LEDs on the fully customizable zones. So this is where you can go in and create some. You just go to new layer. You can choose which color effect you want of any of these, or you can go into custom. And you have 3 more. Say you want a static color for the front. We can do white lights, so it illuminates the keypad in front of me. We'll keep that one. But when I make the scroll wheel a different color, I can go in here, choose another static color. We can go green for the color wheel. And then we can make the logo a different color. Say purple. Make it just the logo. And that's all there is to it. Now your mouse will change to those colors whenever it's in this specific profile. Now if you want to create a color scheme for all of them, you can create a new layer. Say you want watercolor. You can either pick 2 colors for it to cycle through, or you can leave it on rainbow and it'll cycle through all of them. You can change the speed of it. Super simple. Now since this is the top layer, it'll do this feature above all the others. So it'll stay on this color feature. Now I can click and drag this down. So now this feature will only show up in the front, since that's the only layer underneath it over here. So if I look at the front, it'll still be changing the colors, while the other 2 static colors I set will be showing up on the other 2 zones. The last thing you can really do with the mouse is go into the settings of it. Here you can see what speed your mouse is running at, what the battery limit is. Right now I have it connected to the charging cord, so all that says is charging. You can adjust the brightness of the RGB lights, set the sleep mode, which is how long it takes from an inactive mouse until it goes to sleep when you're not plugged in. Have the battery icon show up in your notification bars. And then down here you have angle snapping and button response optimization. These are 2 settings that I wouldn't even mess with. Angle snapping just helps you draw straighter lines if you're doing some sort of workflow, while button response optimization tries to get the mouse to not register clicks that you don't mean to click. But both of these options, they change the way your mouse operates, and it just makes it feel not like a normal mouse. So I definitely wouldn't change either of those settings unless you're in an actual workflow that you need that particular setting. But that about wraps it up for the Icue software. Super simple, super straightforward. Like I said, I went through the whole thing, figured it out in about 10 minutes. I know some people online say that it's super complex and doesn't make sense. I haven't found that to be the case at all, as it's super easy to use. If you end up wanting to delete one of your profiles that you create, it's just as simple as right-clicking, deleting, and it goes back to my normal profile. So that'll about do it for the Corsair Icue section of this video. I know it was a really quick overview. Hopefully I explained everything in a way that makes it super simple for everyone to understand. So while there were a couple inconveniences with the mouse, none of them are really deal breakers. And a lot of the little quirks with the mouse that I found aren't going to apply to everybody. Overall, I paid 90 bucks for this mouse, and if I had to go over, buy it again, or recommend it to a friend or a family member, I absolutely would. I love this mouse. I love the feel of it. I love the look of it. You know, everything about this mouse just screams quality. I feel like I could have paid twice as much for a mouse and not gotten one that I'm quite as happy with. Coming in at less than 100 bucks, I feel like it's a super great value for this mouse, and I definitely got my money's worth out of what I paid for it. So there you have it, folks. My review of Corsair's Ironclaw RGB Wireless mouse. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found this information useful, please smash the like button. Consider subscribing to the channel. As being a small channel, it really helps the channel out. If you want to see more tech reviews like this, let me know in the comments below of any products that you might be interested in, and I will do my best to try and get a product like that to put on this channel. If you're interested in the Ironclaw RGB Wireless gaming mouse, I do have links for both the mouse and the cord that I purchased for the mouse in the description below. Coming up, I did get a Corsair mouse pad that I got with this mouse that I will be doing a review on in the future, so be sure to stay tuned for that. And as always, thank you to everyone who stayed till the end of this video, and we will see you in the next one.